You stir in the darkness before the first cock crows, your eyes opening not to the gentle embrace of natural awakening, but to the sharp awareness that comes with absolute power. The soak sheets beneath you are finer than anything your subjects will ever touch, yet they bring no comfort to your restless form. Sleep, that gentle refuge of common men, has become a stranger to you since you donned the imperial crown. Your mind churns with the endless calculations of empire. Which general might harbor treasonous thoughts? Which senator spoke too softly at yesterday's session? Which distant province might even now be raising banners of rebellion against your rule? The shadows in your chamber shift and dance in the flickering light of the oil lamps that burn through the night. Your servants dare not let darkness claim the emperor's quarters completely, for darkness breeds conspiracy, and conspiracy breeds death. You have learned this lesson from the fates of your predecessors, those who trusted too much in the loyalty of men or the protection of walls. The marble columns that support your ceiling have witnessed the rise and fall of many who wore the purple before you, and they will witness many more after your bones have crumbled to dust. Beyond your door, you hear the measured footsteps of the Praetorian Guards, those elite soldiers sworn to protect your sacred person. Yet, as you lie in your bed, you cannot help but wonder whether they walk with the steady rhythm of protectors or the patient pace of predators waiting for their moment to strike. History has taught you that the Praetorian Guard has been both shield and sword to emperors. Sometimes in the same hour, they have elevated humble men to godhood and cast gods down to mortality with equal efficiency. Their loyalty is as precious as it is fragile, bought with gold and maintained through fear, respect, and the careful balance of reward and threat. You rise from your bed, your feet touching the cold marble floor, and begin the ritual of transformation that occurs each dawn. Your body servants appear as if summoned by your very thoughts, their movements silent and practiced. They know that your mood in these early hours can determine the fate of thousands before the sun reaches its zenith. You are dressed in garments that cost more than most citizens will see in a lifetime. Silk from the distant Orient, purple dye extracted from thousands of murex shells, gold thread woven by the finest craftsmen in the empire. Yet, each layer of clothing feels like another chain, binding you to duties and expectations that no mortal man was meant to bear. The imperial purple settles upon your shoulders like a mantle of lead. This color, forbidden to all others upon pain of death, marks you as something beyond human, a living bridge between the mortal world and the realm of the gods. Yet, as you feel its weight, you are reminded constantly of your own flesh, your own mortality, your own human fears and desires that rage beneath the divine facade you must present to the world. You stride through corridors lined with statues of your deified predecessors, their marble eyes seeming to follow your progress toward the throne room. Each face carved in stone represents a story of triumph and tragedy, of power gained and power lost, of men who became gods and gods who died as men. Their silent presence reminds you that you walk a path worn smooth by countless imperial feet, yet fraught with perils that have claimed emperors both wise and foolish, beloved and despised. The great doors of the throne room swing open before you, and you enter the theatre where the daily drama of imperial power unfolds. The chamber itself is a masterpiece of architectural intimidation. Soaring columns of imported marble, walls adorned with frescoes depicting your military victories, and at the far end, the ivory throne that elevates you above all other mortals. The morning light streams through high windows, casting long shadows that seem to divide the room between those who stand in the emperor's favor and those who linger in darkness. Before you stretches a sea of faces, each one a study in carefully controlled expression. Senators in their pristine togas arrange their features into masks of respectful attention, yet you have learned to read the subtle signs that betray their true thoughts. The slight tightening around the eyes of Senator Cornelius suggests he bears unwelcome news from his province. The overly enthusiastic smile of Senator Flavius indicates he seeks some favor that will likely cost the imperial treasury dearly. The carefully neutral expression of Senator Marcus tells you he has heard rumors he dare not speak aloud, but hopes you have heard as well. Your generals stand apart from the senators, their bronze breastplates gleaming in the morning light, their faces bearing the weathered marks of campaigns fought in your name across the known world. These are men who have seen death in 1,000 forms, who have commanded legions and conquered cities, yet they too must bow before your throne and speak in carefully measured words. You search their faces for signs of ambition that might grow into treachery, for disappointment that might fester into rebellion, for the subtle shift in bearing that might herald a coup already set in motion. The petitioners stretch back beyond the pillars, a seemingly endless line of citizens, foreigners, and slaves, seeking the emperor's justice. Each carries with them some fragment of the empire's daily struggle. A merchant ruined by pirates, a veteran seeking his promised land grant, a provincial governor accused of corruption, a widow demanding justice for her murdered husband. Their faces blur together into a tapestry of human need and desperation, all focused upon you as the ultimate source of justice and mercy in their world. You take your place upon the throne, feeling the cool ivory against your back, and begin the careful dance of imperial judgment. Each decision you make will ripple outward like stones cast into still water, affecting lives and fortunes across your vast domain. A nod of your head can elevate a man to wealth and power. A gesture of dismissal can condemn him to poverty or death. The weight of such authority should belong to the gods alone, yet it rests upon your mortal shoulders. The first petitioner approaches, and you listen to his carefully rehearsed words while studying the faces of those who brought him forward. In this theatre of power, nothing is as simple as it appears. Every request masks a dozen hidden motivations. Every plea for justice conceals someone else's desire for revenge. Every gift offered to the imperial treasury comes with invisible strings that may one day be pulled to manipulate your decisions. You have learned that being emperor means becoming the greatest actor in the greatest theatre ever built, where the audience never applauds and the critics carry daggers. The morning court concludes, but your duties have only begun. You retire to your private study, where maps of the known world cover every wall, like windows into the vast expanse of your responsibility. These are not the simple charts used by merchants, or the crude sketches employed by barbarian chieftains. These are masterworks of imperial cartography, showing every road built by Roman engineers, every fort manned by Roman legions, every city that sends tribute to your treasury. Yet for all their detail, they cannot capture the human drama unfolding across your empire, the hopes and fears, the loyalty and treachery, the daily struggles of millions who live and die under your rule. Your secretaries enter bearing the morning dispatches, leather tubes sealed with wax and marked with the symbols of their origin. These cylindrical messengers carry within them the pulse of empire. Reports from governors and generals, complaints from client kings, requests for troops or grain or gold from every corner of your domain. You break the first seal and unfold papyrus that bears news from Britannia, where your legions struggle against painted warriors who emerge from mist-shrouded forests to attack Roman settlements before vanishing like ghosts. The general writes of victory, but you read between the lines and see the truth, that conquest is an illusion when every mile of territory must be held by force, and every road patrolled by soldiers who long for the warm sun of Italia. Another dispatch brings word from the eastern frontier, where your forces face the ancient kingdom of Parthia, across a border marked more by mutual exhaustion than any natural boundary. The Parthian king has sent envoys bearing gifts and promises of peace, but you know that such embassies often precede the very wars they claim to prevent. You must decide whether to trust these overtures or prepare for conflict, knowing that either choice might prove catastrophic. Trust the wrong enemy, and Roman blood will water foreign soil. Prepare for the wrong war, and your empire's resources will be drained fighting shadows, while real threats gather strength elsewhere. From Egypt comes news that both gladdens and troubles your heart. The Nile's annual flood has been generous, promising abundant harvests that will fill Roman granaries and feed the hungry masses of your capital. Yet the same dispatch warns of growing unrest among the native population, who chafe under Roman taxation, and whisper of ancient pharaohs who will rise again to cast out the foreign occupiers. You must decide whether to send more legions to maintain order, or reduce the tax burden and risk shortfalls in your budget. Each choice carries the seeds of future crisis. Your finger traces the routes marked on your maps, following the roads that bind your empire together like arteries carrying the lifeblood of Roman civilization. Along these stone highways march your legions, bearing your eagles into lands their grandfathers never imagined. Yet these same roads can carry rebellion as swiftly as they carry trade, and you know that every mile of Roman road is also a mile that enemies can use to strike at the heart of your power. The burden of the provinces weighs heavily upon your mind as you consider the reports of barbarian movements beyond your frontiers. Germanic tribes gather in the forests beyond the Rhine, their numbers swelling with refugees and warriors driven from their homes by pressures you can barely comprehend. In the north, Pictish raiders probe the wall that marks the edge of civilization, testing Roman resolve with each attack. To the south, desert nomads gather around oases, their eyes turned toward the green fields of your African provinces. You must decide where to station your legions, knowing that every soldier sent to guard one frontier is a soldier not available to defend another. Your generals write requesting reinforcements with the confidence of men who see only their own battles, but you see the larger picture, 29 legions spread across a world, each one holding back the darkness that would consume Roman civilization if your vigilance ever faltered. The afternoon sun climbs toward its zenith as you prepare for your most visible duty, appearing before the Roman people in their great arenas of entertainment. Your servants dress you in robes of state, garments designed not for comfort, but for the theatre of imperial majesty. The purple silk catches the light like captured sunset, while golden threads trace patterns that tell the story of your victories and divine favor. Upon your head rests the laurel crown, its golden leaves a reminder that you have been blessed by the gods and accepted by the people as their supreme ruler. The journey to the Circus Maximus is itself a carefully orchestrated performance. Your litter, carried by specially trained slaves and guarded by your most trusted praetorians, moves through streets lined with citizens who have abandoned their daily labors to catch a glimpse of their emperor. Some call out blessings and prayers for your health and prosperity. Others maintain respectful silence, their eyes averted from your divine presence. A few, you notice, watch with expressions that are harder to read. Calculation, perhaps, or barely concealed resentment. These faces trouble you most, for they remind you that imperial power rests ultimately upon the consent of the governed, and consent can be withdrawn as easily as it was granted. The Circus Maximus rises before you, like a mountain of stone and human ambition, its tiers capable of holding 250,000 souls. As your litter approaches the imperial box, the roar of the crowd washes over you like a physical force. This is the voice of Rome itself, not the careful whispers of senators or the measured words of generals, but the raw expression of the common people who work in your shops, serve in your legions, and worship at your temples. You take your place in the imperial box, elevated above the arena floor, where gladiators and wild beasts will soon spill their blood for the entertainment of your subjects. The crowd's attention focuses upon you with an intensity that is both exhilarating and terrifying. Every gesture you make will be observed, interpreted, and discussed in taverns and markets throughout the city. A smile at the wrong moment might be seen as approval of excessive brutality. A frown might be interpreted as displeasure with the games themselves, reflecting poorly upon those who organized them in your honor. The first contest begins, a matched pair of gladiators whose lives you hold in your hands. They fight with the desperate skill of men who know that only one will see the sunset. Their movements a deadly dance choreographed by years of training and the immediate presence of death. The crowd roars its approval as bronze meets bronze, as blood spatters the sand, as one warrior gains advantage over another. Yet through it all, their eyes occasionally flick toward your box, seeking some sign of your pleasure or displeasure that might influence their fate. When the moment comes for imperial judgment, when one gladiator stands over his fallen opponent, and the crowd's voice rises in a tumult of conflicting opinions, all eyes turn to you. The weight of absolute power presses down upon your shoulders as you raise your hand. The gesture you make, thumb raised for mercy, thumb horizontal for death, will determine whether a man lives to fight another day or dies on blood-soaked sand. The crowd waits in breathless silence for your decision, and in that moment you feel the terrible isolation of command. There is no one to advise you, no precedent to guide you, no appeal from whatever judgment you render. Between the spectacles, you perform the ritual distribution of bread that has become as essential to Roman governance as the legions themselves. Your servants cast loaves into the crowd, and you watch citizens scramble for this imperial largesse with a mixture of satisfaction and unease. These are free Romans, descendants of the men who conquered the world, yet they depend upon your generosity for their daily sustenance. Their loyalty, is bought with grain and spectacle, as much as it is earned through just governance and military victory. The games continue through the afternoon. Wild beasts from the corners of your empire, exotic criminals condemned to death in elaborate staged hunts, chariot races that set different factions of the city at each other's throats. You watch it all with the practiced expression of imperial approval, yet your mind wanders to the cost of these entertainments. The gold spent on a single day's games could equip a legion or build a new aqueduct. Yet you know that denying the people their bread and circuses would be more dangerous than facing any barbarian army. As evening shadows lengthen across the imperial palace, you return to quarters that are simultaneously the most luxurious and most isolated in the known world. Your private dining chamber is a marvel of artistic achievement. Walls painted with scenes from mythology, floors inlaid with mosaics depicting your military times, furniture crafted from rare woods and precious metals. Yet for all its beauty, it cannot dispel the fundamental loneliness that settles upon you like a winter fog each night, when the day's performances of imperial power come to an end. Your evening meal is served on golden plates by servants who have been with your household for years, yet you dare not consider any of them true friends. The food has been prepared by cooks whose loyalty has been tested through years of service, yet each dish is tasted by others before it reaches your lips. The wine flows from amphorae bearing the seals of your most trusted suppliers, yet it too must pass the test of other tongues before you dare to drink. This is the price of wearing the crown. To be surrounded by luxury yet trust nothing. To be attended by hundreds yet remain fundamentally alone. Your family joins you for the evening meal, and their presence brings both comfort and anxiety. Your wife approaches with the graceful bearing of a woman born to the imperial household, her beauty enhanced by jewels that could ransom kingdoms. Yet as she takes her place beside you, you find yourself studying her expression for signs of deception or hidden agenda. Does her smile spring from genuine affection, or is it calculated to maintain her position as empress? When she speaks of her day, of visits to temples, and meetings with the wives of senators, are these innocent social activities or something more political? The curse of absolute power is that it poisons even the most intimate relationships with suspicion and doubt. Your children, the heirs to your throne and the future of your dynasty, present their own complex web of emotions. You love them with the fierce devotion of any father, yet you cannot forget that they are also your potential successors, and therefore your potential rivals. History is littered with the bodies of emperors killed by ambitious sons or nephews who grew tired of waiting for natural succession. You watch your eldest son as he speaks of his studies and military training, searching for signs of premature ambition or dangerous impatience. You observe your younger children at play, wondering which of them might one day wear the purple, and whether they will remember their father with love, or merely as an obstacle that was finally removed. The conversation at your table ranges across the mundane details of imperial family life, yet every topic carries hidden depths of political significance. Your wife mentions a senator's wife who seemed distant at a recent gathering. Is this mere social awkwardness, or a sign that her husband is falling from imperial favor? Your son describes his progress in rhetoric and law. Are these the natural interests of a young aristocrat, or preparation for challenging your authority? Your daughter speaks of a marriage proposal from a provincial governor's son. Is this an opportunity to cement political alliances, or a potential threat to imperial security? After the meal, you retire to your private study, where the burdens of empire await your attention even in the evening hours. Dispatches that arrived too late for the morning briefings lie open on your desk, their contents demanding immediate decisions that cannot wait for dawn. A rebellion in Gaul requires you to choose between sending experienced legions from the Germanic frontier or newly raised troops whose loyalty remains untested. A plague in Alexandria threatens to disrupt the grain supplies upon which Rome itself depends. A client king in Syria has died, leaving a succession dispute that could destabilize the entire eastern frontier. These decisions must be made in solitude, for the weight of empire cannot be shared with others. Your advisors can provide information and counsel, but the final responsibility rests upon your shoulders alone. In these quiet hours, when the palace sleeps around you, and the oil lamps cast dancing shadows on the walls, you feel the full isolation of absolute authority. There is no colleague to share your burdens, no equal to discuss your fears, no friend to offer comfort without ulterior motive. Night falls over Rome, but sleep remains elusive. You dismiss your servants and walk alone through your private chambers, your footsteps echoing softly on marble floors. The palace that should be your sanctuary feels more like a maze filled with hidden dangers. You vary your sleeping arrangements nightly, sometimes choosing your official bedchamber, sometimes a guest room, occasionally even a servant's quarters. Unpredictability has become your shield against those who would see you dead. Your memory conjures the faces of your predecessors, some who died peacefully in their beds, others who met violent ends at the hands of assassins, conspirators, or their own guards. You recall the stories passed down through palace whispers, the emperor who trusted his food too readily, the one who ignored his guards' growing discontent, the one who failed to see the daggers hidden beneath senatorial togas. Each tale serves as a reminder that imperial purple is often stained with imperial blood. You think of Caligula, stabbed repeatedly by his own praetorian officers in a dark corridor of his palace. You remember Nero, driven to suicide by the rebellion of his armies and the hatred of his people. Even the great Julius Caesar, your adoptive father's father, fell beneath the senator's blades, despite all his victories and achievements. The throne of Rome is built upon the graves of those who sat upon it, and you know that your own name may someday be added to that grim roll. Yet, despite the constant danger, you cannot simply retreat from public life. An emperor who hides in his palace soon finds himself an emperor of nothing. You must continue to appear before your people, to lead your armies, to meet with senators and foreign ambassadors. Each public appearance is a calculated risk. Each journey beyond your guarded chambers, a potential death sentence. The burden of leadership demands that you face these dangers daily, knowing that any sunrise might be your last. Dawn brings with it the sacred duties that mark you as more than mortal in the eyes of your subjects. As Pontifex Maximus, chief priest of Rome, you bear responsibility for maintaining the gods' favor and ensuring the spiritual welfare of the empire. You don ceremonial robes and make your way to the temple, where priests await your arrival with the sacred implements of sacrifice. The bowl destined for sacrifice is pure white, its hide unmarked by blemish, a gift worthy of Jupiter himself. You take the ritual knife in your hands, feeling its familiar weight. Your movements follow patterns established by centuries of tradition, words spoken by countless generations of Roman leaders. As the blade finds its mark, you watch for omens in the animal's death throes, in the pattern of its blood, in the shape of its organs. The priests nod approvingly. The gods smile upon Rome today, or so they claim. Yet even as you perform these ancient rites, you wonder at the strange paradox of your existence. In the provinces, temples rise in your honor. Prayers are offered to your divine spirit. Altars smoke with incense burned before your image. You are worshipped as a god by millions who have never seen your face, yet you feel the weight of mortality in every breath you take. Your divinity is a political necessity, a tool that helps bind the empire together, but it cannot protect you from the very human fears that plague your days and nights. The philosophical tutors of your youth taught you to question the nature of the gods, to wonder whether they truly exist or are merely comforting fictions created by mortal minds. Now, carrying the burden of divine authority yourself, you understand that the truth matters less than the belief. Your subjects need to see you as more than human, as a bridge between earth and heaven. Their faith in your divine nature gives them faith in Rome itself, and that faith is perhaps the strongest chain that binds the empire together. You commission new temples and monuments, partly from genuine piety, partly from political calculation. These buildings will outlast your mortal body, carrying your name and deeds into future ages. In marble and bronze, you seek the immortality that flesh cannot provide. Yet you know that even the greatest monuments can crumble, that even the mightiest empires can fall, and that the gods themselves may be forgotten by men who worship newer deities with different names. The morning brings a crisis that tests every aspect of your imperial role. Word arrives that plague has struck the eastern provinces, a disease that kills swiftly and spreads faster than fleeing refugees can carry it. Your advisors debate responses. Should you send physicians, close the roads, evacuate the affected regions? Each choice carries consequences that ripple across the empire like stones thrown into still water. As military commander, you must consider whether your legions might carry the contagion to new territories. As supreme judge, you must decide whether to punish governors who flee their posts, or commend those who remain to help their people. As high priest, you must determine what sacrifices might appease the gods' anger. As political leader, you must craft messages that inform without causing panic, that show decisive action without revealing your own uncertainty. The reports continue throughout the day. A crop failure in Gaul, barbarian raids across the Danube, a revolt brewing in Judea, pirates threatening grain ships from Egypt. Each crisis demands your personal attention, your unique authority to coordinate responses across vast distances. You realize that the empire has grown beyond any single person's ability to comprehend fully, yet somehow it continues to function because people believe you possess the wisdom and power to guide it. Your secretary reads the day's correspondence, letters from provincial governors seeking guidance, petitions from cities requesting tax relief, reports from spies monitoring potential enemies. Each document represents lives hanging in the balance, communities whose fate depends upon your decisions. A single word from you can save a town or doom it, can promote a loyal officer or destroy a corrupt official, can launch a military campaign or prevent a war. As evening approaches, you reflect on the impossible expectations placed upon your shoulders. Your subjects expect you to be simultaneously warrior and peacemaker, judge and merciful father, divine figure and accessible leader. They want you to solve every problem, prevent every disaster, anticipate every need. The weight of these expectations sometimes threatens to crush your spirit, yet you know that meeting them, however imperfectly, is the price of maintaining the empire that gives meaning to millions of lives. In the quiet hours before midnight, you enter your private study where maps of the empire cover every wall. By lamplight, you trace the boundaries of Roman territory with your finger, from the Scottish Highlands to the Sahara Desert, from the Atlantic shore to the Euphrates River. This vast realm is your legacy, but it is also your burden. You know that empires, like men, are mortal, and the thought of Rome's eventual decline haunts your sleepless nights. You turn your attention to the succession plans that occupy so much of your thought. Your heir shows promise, but promise and ability are different things. Will he have the strength to hold the empire together when barbarian pressure increases? Will he command the loyalty of the legions when they face their next great crisis? You remember how many emperors' sons proved unworthy of their father's achievements, how quickly a generation's work can be undone by incompetent leadership. The historians you have commissioned to record your reign work diligently, but you know they write as much for your approval as for posterity's education. How will future generations judge your rule? Will they remember the roads you built, the provinces you pacified, the prosperity you brought to Roman citizens? Or will they focus on the wars that were necessary, the harsh decisions that kept the empire stable, the human costs of maintaining Roman peace? You walk among the statues and busts that line your corridor, images of your predecessors, carved in marble and bronze, their stone eyes seeming to watch your passage. Some are remembered as great rulers, others as tyrants or failures. You wonder what expression your own portrait will wear, what stories will be told about your character and achievements. The desire for a favorable legacy drives many of your decisions, yet you know that history's judgment often bears little resemblance to present reality. Your greatest monuments rise throughout the empire, aqueducts that bring fresh water to distant cities, amphitheaters where citizens gather for entertainment, roads that connect provinces and facilitate trade. These works will endure long after your name is forgotten, serving people who will never know or care who ordered their construction. Perhaps this is the truest immortality, not in statues or histories, but in the practical improvements that make countless lives better. The years have passed like pages in a scroll, each one marked by decisions great and small, by crises weathered and opportunities seized. Your hair has grown grey with the weight of empire, your face lined by the constant strain of absolute responsibility. As you stand once more in your private chambers, watching the eternal city spread before you, you contemplate the strange journey that brought you to this pinnacle of human power. You remember the young man you once were, ambitious and certain, eager to claim your birthright and shape the world according to your vision. That youth could never have imagined the price of imperial authority, the isolation that comes with absolute power, the suspicion that poisons every relationship, the burden of carrying millions of lives upon your shoulders. The crown has given you everything you thought you wanted, yet it has cost you much of what makes life worth living. The empire continues its vast machinery around you, largely indifferent to your personal struggles. Merchants trade along Roman roads, farmers tend Roman fields, soldiers guard Roman frontiers, children learn Latin in distant schools, while their parents worship gods whose names you have barely heard. The success of your rule can be measured not in your personal happiness, but in their prosperity and security. You understand now that being Emperor of Rome means accepting a kind of magnificent imprisonment. You are simultaneously the most powerful and most constrained person in the world. Every luxury is yours to command, yet simple pleasures, a private walk, an unguarded conversation, a meal without fear, remain beyond your reach. You have shaped the destiny of nations, yet your own life has been shaped entirely by the demands of your office. As you prepare for sleep, in yet another carefully chosen chamber, you wonder whether future emperors will understand these truths, whether they will recognize the terrible beauty of the burden they seek. The purple that marks your station is indeed a precious dye, but it is also the color of dried blood, and those who wear it must be prepared to pay its price. You have paid that price willingly, knowing that someone must bear the weight of empire. Someone must make the hard choices that preserve civilization itself. The oil in your lamp burns low, casting longer shadows across the marble walls. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new decisions, new tests of your wisdom and resolve. But tonight, in the quiet darkness, you allow yourself a moment of simple human reflection. You have been Emperor of Rome, with all the glory and anguish that title entails. Whether history judges you kindly or harshly, you have served as faithfully as mortal flesh allows, carrying the burden of empire until your strength finally fails and another takes your place upon the throne that no man can hold forever.